welcome to another Wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and as you can see, we're taking a look at Fields of Fire from GMT Games. And this is a solitaire solo-only game, and this is actually Volume 1. So they announced Volume 2 many moons ago, and it only just got to production this year, and they're putting it out very, very soon. This is, it's fall 2017 right now, so it should be hitting tables fairly soon, Volume 2. This is the second edition of Fields of Fire. I think Fields of Fire, the first edition, was wildly successful. I think people loved that game. I personally did not play that, although I've watched plenty of videos on YouTube about it and talked to some people who really liked that game. This game was recommended to me because it's a solo game. That's something that I like to do, and I think many of us out there enjoy solo gaming, or at least we're doomed to it, because finding opponents these days to sit down for 6 hours for a game is very hard. So, Fields of Fire. Now, you can see I don't have it all kind of out on the table, and I chose to do that because this game is not huge, but extremely deep. And I think what I'm going to do is I'll do a series of videos of smaller bites of how to play the game and what the game actually looks like on a table and how you go about playing that. There's an incredibly useful series of videos for the first edition out there, where it's how to play in a walkthrough of the first scenario. But there have been some rules changes and some updates to the components, so I think I might embark upon that odyssey of trying to do something similar so people out there can learn this game a bit easier. And I say that because this game is very, very deep. It's not necessarily the most complex, although I would say that I personally would say that it is complex. I wonder if they have the complexity. So on the GMT complexity scale, and I know people say it's arbitrary, this is a 6. I would personally say it's a little bit more than that, at least from a learning standpoint. This has quite a steep learning curve. The rulebook in this is massive. If you go back and watch my unboxing video, after opening the rulebook, I had no idea what on earth I was talking about, because there's so much in there. It was easy to get lost in a game this big. And the reason I have this shoebox here is because, and I'll open this and show you, this is Fields of Fire. Once I got everything punched, it fills up this 3-inch shoebox that I got. This 2-inch box is like a joke. This is what it comes in, but good luck storing it in there. But we can just show you, this is just paper here. This is just the rule book, and this is the scenario book for Normandy and for Vietnam. And then this is player aid charts, and then this is there's like a game record log, and there's a pad of that for tracking your company and the weapons and various different bits and pieces for the enemy. Everything else in here, I think there's one other scenario book for the 2 Korea campaigns, and everything else is counters and cards. There's a ton in here, and that was part of what was awesome. There's just so much in here. This game is easily worth the price point, which is fairly reasonable. But each campaign has a different deck of cards for the scenario for each of the campaigns. So Normandy has its own deck of cards, and that has different terrains that you'd find in Normandy. Korea, very, very different. It's got hills, mountains, jungles, that kind of stuff. Vietnam is got all these various different swamps, and it's awesome. And they give you different bonuses and abilities based on what was historically encountered. There's so much cool stuff. But that's just it. There is so much. There is a lot in here. So before I go any further, I don't want to scare everyone off. This game's incredible. This, right up there, may well have shot into one of my favorite solo games of all time. It's so good. It is very difficult to learn. I spent forever, hours, pouring through the rulebook and then actually trying to play it. And I had the little videos going from the first edition, and I was looking at the rules for the second edition saying, okay, this is a little bit different, this is how this other thing works. But those helped me immensely, which is why I kind of want to give back and try and do a series of those for this edition. Because there are some changes, especially with the actual components and some bits and pieces of how everything works. but this game is extensive. And what I love about it is the detail. Like, I've played a good amount of solo games, and, you know, some of them out there, it's kind of dice chucking, story and narrative, that kind of stuff. Some of them have great modules for tactical games. 65 has an excellent solo module. It's basically you play the same game, but there's just an algorithm of what the enemy's going to do, and they have this like secret hidden counter mechanism, which I love. But it's an adaptation of a tactical game. This is purely solo, and so it's the level of detail that comes out from this design is incredible. It really is. It can seem daunting, even from the simplest trying to start the game. You know, you draw a card, and you know your CO gives you an X amount of orders, and then from those orders that he's got, he can then order and activate his platoon leaders X amount, or he can keep them over, or a mixture of both. And then each of those platoon leaders who've got activated, you then pull another card, and those guys get a number of activations to activate the squads in their platoon. So you go through, there's a lot of different layers to even start moving chits on the board. And the board is these decks of cards. Again, I love that too. So because the board will change shape, and it'll grow with these cards. And it's not, the board itself isn't too complex. The board doesn't detract from that. But like trying to get started was the hardest part. Once it gets going, it's fairly easy. But understanding how all the interplay of the cards and the orders and each different unit is and how those move, you know, that getting that over that hump after that, you know, once you do it a few times, the turns will go just like that. You're like, okay, you go through a routine. There's an excellent sequence of playing here, which has that perfect mix of being very, very lengthy and having like enough blurb for each sub point to tell you, oh yeah, that's what we're doing now, instead of just saying like orders and then giving you a number to reference the rules. It tells you it's like this little step, this little step, this little step. So that's once you've digested the rules, the sequence of play is going to really help you out with doing that. And there's great play aids in this. But what we'll do, I'm going to get the game set up at some point where I'll video the whole, I spent hours doing it. I'll video the whole thing, and we'll cut it up into bite-sized sections of how to even set up the game for those who are new. Because that can be daunting. I have, these are the Americans, these are the Germans and some admin counters and bits and pieces. And these are the Vietnamese. So we've got NVA and we've got VC in here. We've got Koreans in here as well. I mean, it's just, it's crazy how much stuff there is. And then, on top of that, I got bags and bags and reams of different other counters as well to even try and get it all in here. There's just a ton of stuff, like so much stuff. So get yourself a big box because you need one. Unless you want to spend 5 hours sorting out the game if you threw all the counters in, but I don't recommend that. But seriously, this game gives me a feeling, and I've just played some of the Normandy scenarios. It feels like you're playing an episode of Band of Brothers. That's what it feels like to me, because you are in charge of a company. You got typically you got 3 platoons in which each have 3 squads, and you've got some different weapons teams that you can add on. Sometimes you've got tanks that you can have. Sometimes there's other different bits and pieces you can add on. But really, it's at a squad level. Really, you're activating a squad to go and do a thing. Whether it's move in here to find cover in a certain card, try and take an objective, or hold off the enemy. That's really what it boils down to, and it's so dynamic. That's the word I'd use for this system. You move a squad in, they get a little exposed marker because they're running in. And then if you've got more actions, you have them try to find cover. So they'll draw a number of cards based on the cover value of that card, of that terrain they're in. And then if any of those cards says cover, boom, they find cover. Awesome. You put them on a little cover counter. And then each of these terrain cards will have like an encounter marker. And it's called, or potential contact marker is what they're called. And then once you've done all your stuff, you resolve each of these potential contacts. And so you flip it over, and then you draw a card, and there's a lot of card drawing on here. The whole game runs off of this singular deck, which is awesome. So you draw a card, and based on, there's like an odds value at the bottom here. So you've got down here, these numbers at the bottom. So you roll, okay, we're going to roll on a 10, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Underneath 10, you've got an 8. And these are all randomized, so that's really cool. So I rolled on a D10, basically, is what it is, and I got an 8. So then I look at that big old chart that we had here. Now, if I can find it. Oops. So we've got German order of battle on here, and boom. If it was, there's a lot to it. If I had potential contact marker A, I would reference that part here, and we rolled an 8. So we go 8 here, boom. It is a patrol. So we encountered a patrol in that section, and then you go and look up in the German order of battle, boom. Here's what a patrol looks like. It does these things, and it consists of a German squad, and then you add a exposed marker. So you're going to dig out the right stuff, and then you're going to lay that out, and then you draw cards to place it. Is it in this terrain? Is it on the one next to it? Is it over here? Then they're going to open fire and try and shoot you. So you kind of move in, and then the trap springs, at least in the ones where you're on the offensive. And some of it gets really hairy. You move in, boom. There's a MG42 nest over here, and there's a sniper over here, and then you're like suddenly caught in deadly crossfire. And it's called Fields of Fire for that reason. You have these volume of fire markers, and everything's directional. So you're like, oh, it's so awesome. I know I'm not really doing it justice, but it's so hard to explain not having it out. But having it out and explaining it's going to be kind of a huge project and undertaking. I'm going to do that, but I just wanted to let you know that this game is amazing. I cannot wait to keep playing this. This is a game where I'm not just going to play 1 or 2 scenarios and put it on a shelf for a rainy day. This is one where I'm going to play all of the campaigns, all of the different terrains, and get through this, because I know Volume 2 is coming out. So this is 9th Infantry, follows them through the 3 wars. Volume 2 is 5th Marines. So Volume 2 is the Marine Division, so it goes through Peleliu and then into Korea, and I think of Vietnam as well. But it's just, you get the Pacific side of that in World War II, and you get it's going to be totally different flavor, different units, obviously different abilities, probably a lot of beach landing type stuff. I hope so. I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to see a beach landing scenario in this and what that would look like. Probably brutal. But the game is very complex. So understand that going into it. Like, it's probably not as mind-melting as something like Empire of the Sun, but I probably spent a similar amount of time trying to pour through the rules and make sure I understood it right, so I did this game justice. And if you put in the time for this game will reward you immensely. I think the feeling that I get, you're crawling into this bush, into the bushes here, and then boom, open fire on you, and you're pinned, and it's lethal. I moved some squads into a marsh. They couldn't find any cover, and they got rained down with artillery. It was very, very bad, and I almost immediately lost because I took such heavy casualties. Like all 3 squads, had litters and casualties. It was terrible, terrible, terrible time. But it feels like it's very realistic. And I don't know if that's the artwork or just how everything works, but you micromanage your orders, you're telling these guys to go over here, and you're trying to organize. I feel like it's very tactical, but it's so unpredictable that the game will never play the same way twice. Even if you played the same scenario right after each other, it'd be so wildly different. And that's what makes this awesome. Every session you play, every mission you play, will give you a unique story. And the story it tells isn't just narrative. It is very crunchy. It's very decision-based. Like, you make the decisions in what you do. I was trying to move forward to take a farm building, so from there I could launch an attack on an open field, which was like my main objective. And so it's, how do I go about doing that? What do I want my squads to do? And you can get down to the level of, you have a bunch of different colored smoke markers, and you, before you even start the mission, you say, red smoke means advance, green smoke means advance to secondary objective, yellow smoke means this, and you assign each of those to your different squads. So second squad, when they get up there, they're going to throw their yellow smoke and bring these guys up. I mean, it's awesome. The level of detail in this game is awesome, and I commend this game, and I commend GMT for putting this out. It is really awesome. Ben Hull, who designed this game, he crushed solo gaming. This is so good. You just need a big box and a lot of time. But I'll get this set up, and at some point I'll do some videos of walkthroughs of what the game looks like played. But until then, just know this game's awesome, and I recommend this very, 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 very highly. This is up there with RAF of how much I like that, and that's like one of my favorite games of all time. So I appreciate you sitting down and watching this with me. This is Fields of Fire from GMT. Get it whilst it's hot. They still have it in stock. And I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.